Hey everyone, and welcome. I am absolutely thrilled you're here today because we're tackling something that literally has the power to completely reshape your professional trajectory. Today, we're diving into the foundational principles from John C. Maxwell's famous book, Developing the Leader Within You. If you've ever felt, kind of stuck in your career, or maybe you've wondered why your team just isn't as motivated as you'd like them to be, well, you are definitely in the right place. We're going to use this breakdown to set the stage for a highly actionable ascent into real, proven leadership principles.
Okay, let's dive right into this. We aren't just looking at any run-of-the-mill management book today. This is a true classic. It's sold well over 1 million copies and is used all over the globe as a core curriculum for teaching leadership and strategic planning. And the reason it's so incredibly popular is simple, really. It deals with immutable, timeless principles. It honestly doesn't matter what industry you're in. If you want to lead, you have to master what we're about to cover.
To really grasp the stakes here, consider this amazing anecdote from the author about a guy named Bob. During a break at a leadership seminar, Bob, who's this 53-year-old manager, marches right up to the speaker and just blurts out, "You saved my career." See, Bob had been in management for 17 years, but he admitted that until recently, he basically had no idea how to actually lead. It was only when he started applying the exact principles we're looking at today that his team finally, and comfortably, began to follow his direction. He had all the experience in the world, but he desperately needed the framework. So here's our roadmap for the explainer today. We're going to cover 1, decoding leadership, 2, managing versus leading, 3, the 5 levels of influence, and 4, the 80-20 priority principle. Let's get to it. All right, section 1, decoding leadership. A lot of us hear the word leader and immediately picture someone with the fancy title, a massive corner office, or maybe just the loudest voice in the room. But let's strip all of that away for a second and look at the core mechanism. Here is the bold, super simple definition straight from the text. Leadership is nothing more and nothing less than influence. That's the whole shebang. It's simply the ability to acquire followers. The author has this fantastic saying that hits the nail on the head. He who thinks he leads but has no followers is only taking a walk. Seriously, if you're calling the shots but you look behind you and the room is empty, you aren't leading. You absolutely have to be able to influence others.
Moving right along to section 2, managing versus leading.
Now, we really need to draw a hard line here between a manager and a true leader. People use these words interchangeably all the time, but confusing them is a massive mistake. The text shares this highly relatable, kind of funny joke. Imagine a manager of a failing sales team aggressively berating his staff about their poor numbers, threatening to fire everyone. He turns to a new employee who just so happens to be an ex-professional football player and asks, "Hey, if a football team isn't winning, what happens? The players are replaced, right?" And the ex-player just pauses and goes, "Actually, sir, if the whole team is having trouble, we usually look for a new coach." It's funny, for sure, but it proves a fundamental truth. Everything rises and falls on leadership.
And man, that perfectly highlights the day-to-day difference between a mere boss and a true leader. Think about it. A boss drives workers and leans heavily on the authority of their title, but a leader coaches them and relies on mutual goodwill. A boss creates fear and is super quick to fix blame when things go sideways. A leader creates enthusiasm and actually rolls up their sleeves to fix the breakdown. A boss always says I, while a leader says we. Management is really just about making sure procedures are followed, but leadership is about building a vision and sparking the motivation to actually get there.
Okay, section 3, the 5 levels of influence.
This right here is the absolute core of our breakdown today. The progressive ascent up the 5 levels of leadership. This is where you actually learn how to increase that influence we talked about. So here's a holistic view of the 5-step staircase. As we walk through these, I really invite you to self-diagnose. Think about the people you work with every day and ask yourself, which level am I currently on with them? And remember, you can totally be at different levels with different people. Let's start at the very bottom. Level 1 is position. This is leadership based purely on rights and titles. People follow you here simply because they have to. It's the absolute baseline. Now look, there is nothing inherently wrong with having a title, but if it's the only reason people are listening to you, you're in trouble. Leaders who rely completely on their position almost always face low team morale, minimal effort, and super high turnover. You just can't stay here if you want to be effective. So, how do we level up? That brings us to level 2, permission. This level is built entirely on relationships. At this stage, people are following you because they actually want to. You've taken the time to connect with them, to understand their needs, and to treat them like actual human beings. And the crazy thing is, the work environment just instantly becomes more positive.
To really hammer this home, look at this quote from FedEx founder Fred Smith. He says, "Leadership is getting people to work for you without feeling obligated." Compare that mindset to this famous anecdote about Henry Ford. Ford brilliantly created the Model T, right? But he failed miserably at relationship building. When his customers asked for different colored cars, he famously replied, "You can have any color you want as long as it's black." It showed a complete, utter lack of interest in what others desired, and it basically marked the beginning of his company's decline. You absolutely must build relationships.
Okay, so you've built the relationships. What's next? Level 3, production. This is where the momentum really kicks in. At level 3, people follow you because of what you've actually achieved for the organization. You're getting things done, hitting targets, driving profits, and suddenly, problems become way easier to solve because your success breeds serious confidence across the whole team. There is this hilarious story in the book about a salesman named Gooch. He sends his manager this letter filled with just terrible spelling and grammar, saying he just sold a bunch of product and is heading to Chicago. The manager is absolutely livid, ready to fire him right then and there for being so ignorant. But the very next day, Gooch sends another terribly spelled letter revealing he just made $500,000 in sales. So what does the company president do? He posts the letters for everyone to see with a giant note saying, "Stop worrying about spelling and go do what Gooch is doing." The point? At level 3, delivering massive results essentially overrides your other shortcomings. Results create undeniable influence. But listen, true leaders don't just stop at hitting quotas. We move up to level 4, people development. At this level, people follow you because of what you have done for them personally. You aren't just producing results anymore, you are literally producing other leaders. The author actually shares how he intentionally mentored an employee named Cheryl Fleischer. She wasn't a public speaker at all initially, but he poured his time into her until she completely transformed into a highly effective public leader herself. That kind of deep investment, it creates immense, unbreakable loyalty. And finally, we reach level 5, personhood, or the pinnacle. Now, this level isn't something you can just wake up and decide to achieve tomorrow. It is strictly reserved for those who have spent a lifetime proving their leadership and developing others. At level 5, people follow you simply because of who you are and what you represent. It's really all about legacy.
Which brings us to section 4, the 80-20 priority principle.
Now, knowing those 5 levels is great and all, but how do you actually maintain the momentum to climb them? We're going to shift the energy up right now and deliver a highly actionable strategy to prioritize your time. Enter the Pareto principle, better known as the 80-20 rule. This principle states that 20% of your priorities are going to give you 80% of your results. As a leader, your most incredibly limited resources are your time, your energy, and your capital. The 80-20 rule is literally the ultimate mathematical tool to prioritize exactly who and what you should be attempting to influence. Because here's the thing, working hard simply isn't enough. You have to work effectively. Consider this story about a guy who heard that hard work makes you rich. He decided that digging holes was the hardest work possible, right? So he went out to his backyard and just dug massive holes all day long. Did he get rich? No way. He just got a terrible backache. Hard work directed at the wrong priorities leads absolutely nowhere. You have to focus relentlessly on the 20% that yields the 80%. So the crucial point is, how do you actually execute this in the real world? Well, the text gives us 5 specific steps to apply this to your team right now. First, identify your top 20% most influential or productive staff. Second, spend 80% of your leadership time mentoring and developing them. Third, direct 80% of your development funds specifically toward that top tier. Fourth, figure out what 80% of your own tasks are yielding the least return and delegate them so you can focus on your top 20% tasks. And finally, have your newly empowered top 20% train the next tier of employees down. This creates this incredible compounding effect of massive growth.
And that brings us to our final thought. The text leaves us with a really provocative challenge, and I want to extend it directly to you. Everyone influences someone. Every single day, you are leaving an imprint on the people around you. You are building a legacy, whether you realize it or not. So the real question isn't whether you're a leader, but rather, will you actively choose to develop the leader within you? Will you start looking at your daily interactions, not just as chores, but as massive opportunities to build relationships, drive results, and elevate the people around you? Take these principles, apply them, and start climbing those levels today. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.